does not support using the computer's audio device.
That's a computer issue then. We can't do anything with that, can we?
You're live on YouTube, Klaus.
Okay.
Wait just a second, Klaus, before you get started. John, do you have another computer, or can he can't,
He can use his phone.
yeah, I was gonna say, we can hear him on his phone. We can hear you, John, talking. But I think that's through Petra's speaker we can hear. That's why. Because we can hear it. We're hearing him talk through Petra's speaker, which we might have to do that.
We'll just
Well, he
leave it.
can- If he's got an Apple phone, he can enter the Zoom call through his Apple phone and see everybody. He just won't be able to see the whole screen. But he
And
can,
I think that, Stephanie, did you set it up that you can't use your audio only computer?
Correct.
So he can't use it, Jim. We have
Okay.
it set up where you can only use computer audio. So he can talk through his phone and we can hear him, I think, at least I heard him talking when he was talking to Petra.
Mr. Ross, say something.
Okay. How are you all?
Okay, we can hear you through Petra's
Yeah, we
voice.
can hear you.
So you may just have to close your door, Petra. So we
You're
can,
gonna stop your video.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop my video now, though.
Okay, and can you help us? Oh,
you can still talk to her, Dorota. She's,
Just for the future, this may simply be a browser issue. So I'm not sure which browser you're using, but try a different one.
right.
I'm using Chrome, and it says Chrome should work.
Yeah, I'm using Chrome as well. So
Me too.
not
Yes.
sure. If you have a laptop, you can always bring your laptop in if we have to meet by, or you can come here and use the computer here, John. We can set you up in one of the offices at Town
Okay,
Hall.
usually this thing works. I haven't had this problem before. So
I've had it one day. too.
usually
Might
it's
need-
fine.
Oh, well, we'll
Yeah.
we'll figure it out for next time. Okay,
Okay.
Klaus, it
All
looks
right.
like you have everybody now.
We good? Okay. Then let's call this meeting of the Audit Committee to order. First point on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the last Audit Committee meeting. And I think you all have them. Any comments, changes?
Move we approve. Move we approve the meeting, the minutes.
second,
And Klaus, I do have two minor comments, but if you look on the first or paragraph 5 of the minutes,
Yep.
Dave's name is spelt one way in the second paragraph and a different way in the third, fourth, and fifth.
Indeed. That took a sharp eye to spot, Andy.
That's a little proofreading trick.
It's actually spelled with an I as well, so it's
Uh-oh.
IRWIN.
Okay, well, we'll correct that. Anything else? Okay, then we have, we had a motion and a second, so the minutes are approved and we'll move on. We don't need to do a roll call, I understand.
Internet.
We have no old business and we get to new business discussion,
Uh-oh.
auditors regarding our fiscal year 2019 and 2020 audit. And this is usually where I, as someone who has absolutely no audit background, quietly steps into the background and let pros move on with it.
well, maybe we can start with, I'll let David maybe introduce your team. We have new members on our committee too that you haven't met, and we can start with that. David?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, my name's
thanks.
David Irwin. I'm with Malden Jenkins. Happy to be here this morning. Wish it was in person, but hopefully things will get back to normal and sooner rather than later, and we can all meet in person in the future. But I'm the partner on the job. Again, this is our second year auditing you all. Kellen, who you see down there, is the manager on the job. Again, he was on the job last year as well. And as I mentioned earlier, Trey Scott isn't on the call as well. He will be our quality control partner on this year's audit.
Thank you.
Good. And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, ask Dave or Kellen to tell us when you're planning to start What is your schedule? And I guess one of the things I would like to hear, are you approaching it any differently this year than the past because of the situation where I got to believe that our office was closed for a period of time. We continued to transact business. I would assume at some point in time, some of the, what I would describe as normal processes had to vary, and how you're going to address that within your audit.
Sure. We started preliminary audit procedures, I would say about a month ago, Kellen. Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah.
And today is actually the first day of the audit field work. Typically, the audit lasts between a week to 10 days. I think we could probably, since this is our second year auditing you all, you know, a lot of the first year learning curve is over with. So we can essentially create a lot of efficiencies in the second year compared to the first year. So we'll spend the rest of this week out in the audit, doing the field work, doing the testing. Next week, and most likely we'll work from office, just tie down some loose ends. But as far as audit field work goes, it will be this week is when we'll be out in the field. In fact, Kellen is out there right now, and I was supposed to be out there. I had some childcare issues in this environment we're living in that I couldn't come out there today. But I will be out there tomorrow for the rest of the week. And then again, Trey will be our concurrent reviewer. But you're right. You know, that this COVID environment we're in, it's created. It's been unique to say the least. You know, for our 1231 audits, it was essentially a subsequent event for you all. You all dealt with it, you know, 4 or 5 months into your, or towards the end of your year end. So there are some additional procedures that we're going to do to make sure that the internal controls were still in place and properly working during that time, where I would imagine you all were probably in a remote environment. So yes, there are some additional procedures that we'll incorporate throughout the audit. Again, just to ensure that the proper internal controls were still in place and were working.
When we meet at year end, I would like you to maybe indicate to us what kinds of things you did differently, and so that we can, so that at least from my perspective, I can understand what you've done.
Sure. Okay.
Dave, in starting your field work or starting to work from the office before and now the field work, could you tell us in the audit planning phase what you determined to be the critical areas, and more importantly, how and when have you reviewed the controls?
We'll do walkthroughs of controls this week. And Kellen, did we do any walkthroughs or any as far as our preliminary field work?
Not necessarily
walkthroughs
walkthroughs.
this week.
Yeah, it's more just the kind of the planning documents, you know, understanding, you know, what kind of client y'all are describing, you know, what the town does and, you know, things like that. But the actual walkthroughs will be on site this week, actually kind of looking at documents and making sure they're flowing like they need to.
And we use PPC by Thomson Reuters. That's our audit methodology we use for audit accounting guidance. It's the most widely used in the industry. So, you know, we obtain an understanding of your internal controls. We make sure that the town is properly using them. And part of that process is also to ensure whether they're designed effectively and whether they're operating effectively.
And critical areas?
Cash is always a critical component, as you can imagine. We essentially, what we do is we audit the balance sheet. You know, we tie down and we test all the assets and liabilities. From a P&L standpoint, we do a lot of analytical procedures. You know, we compare current year revenues, prior year revenues, expenditures and expenses the same way. You know, thought process with you all, you know, the advantage that you all have is you're in such a good shape financially. You know, your general fund balance covers approximately 2 years worth of your operating expenditures. So if there's ever an entity that can withstand a global pandemic from a financial standpoint, it's you all. You know, it's good to see that you all are in good financial shape. Excuse me. see here. So looking at your revenues, again, you all are a unique entity in the fact that you all do not levy property taxes. Significant amount of your revenues in your general fund, just look at your prior year financial statements, business licenses, $2.5 million. You all have building permits around 1.3 million. So again, we'll look at these revenues and see how they were affected with the pandemic, see if there was any decreases in them. But again, we do expect some unique situations this year in looking at your revenues, because again, this pandemic occurred around March 1st, so it covered 4 months of your year in. But we will be doing some substantive testing and some analytical reviews to look at your revenues, look at your expenses, compare them to prior year, take into account the pandemic that's occurred, and perform and conduct additional testing as necessary.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
As a new member of the committee, I want to give my apologies for asking any questions that maybe some of you have already reviewed or asked, but I have a question. I know the internal controls, you obviously check, that the proper approvals have been given, et cetera, and the limits, et cetera. But does the review go as far as analyzing to tell us that, look, you've been doing business with this supplier for 5 years, and it's the same supplier for 5 years. Why haven't you gone out to the market to see if there's alternatives to this one supplier? Or do you just check with reference to, okay, the approvals were given for an authorization for 10,000, 20,000? Do you go that far?
The latter is what we look into for the most part, but we will look at procurement policies on a sample basis just to see that proper procurement procedures are in place. Again, unless the town is required to go out to bid for a certain service, we have some clients that use the same vendor, have used the same vendor for 20+ years, and there's nothing that says they can't do that. So it would really be, that's a situation that if you all have any specific concerns, there are certainly some additional procedures that we can incorporate as part of our audit to look into that further if you all would like. And again, that's part of this meeting today, is for us to also ask you as members of the audit committee if there's any concerns that you all have. Is there any part of the audit or certain sections you all would want us to look into a little further?
Yeah, just as an example of a previous situation I was about, you had a company that only bought Toyota trucks forever. And obviously the supplier knew that we were only going to buy Toyota, so obviously the price wasn't as competitive. You get to that point. And the reason we were buying Toyota is because it's easier to keep supply, the parts, etc. But at the end of the day, you're really not getting the best deal. And that's my point with any, that's just an example. With any purchase, why be with the same supplier when today the market is very competitive and you can go out for bids on a regular basis to see if you are getting the best deal.
Sure. So, yeah, again, from the financial audit aspect, that's not necessarily what we look into. Okay. But if you all would like to, for us to look into something a little further, we can certainly do so.
Well, that's for the committee to determine. That's just a point.
Yeah, and part of our testing is the compliance. We'll look at an invoice, make sure the disbursement agrees to the invoice is properly approved. To make sure that those procedures are being followed.
No, I'm sure that complies with that. But the other one is a little trickier.
Well, I have a comment or a question for you, really. I know the Ways and Means Committee and the council both reviewed the information in the statements, but one item sticks out, and I'm wondering if we want David and his team to take a closer look at the unbudgeted cleanup cost or expense this year. It's substantial. It carries over from the hurricane, and whether or not, I guess in my mind, the allocation between us and KICA was not only proper, but supported by the value we got, if you will, for the cleanup from the areas we are responsible for, not from KICA, and they don't owe us money or we don't owe them money, vice versa. But more importantly, I understand there's a substantial amount that we thought FEMA was going to reimburse us for and not, and what led to that judgment, and how did it get hung up in the financial statements for 2 years? Is that something we want them to focus on? Are you satisfied from the Ways and Means and the council's review that that item is fairly reported?
It has not been, and Dorothy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this has not been an issue. It's been an issue that we've looked at, but it's not been an issue that we found at either of town council or Ways and Means any fault with. Dorothy, you agree?
Dorota, you're muted.
Was that Stephanie?
Dorota was talking, but she was still muted.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that Mr. Klaus is correct. There was never an issue. There was no more questions. And always Stephanie usually explains the situation there. And, you know, if there is any details that you would like to know about the split between Kika and us, that Stephanie can explain, I guess.
And I'm not sure what storm he's referring to. Do you know, Dorota, or?
I think
Mr.
it's in the
Kelly?
past, the one that we had in the past.
Are you
Not,
talking about Matthew?
No, what was
Before
that?
Matthew.
Dorian?
Irma.
Oh, okay.
Irma, right?
Irma, we didn't have any, yeah, we didn't even go behind the gate on Irma. So everything that was reported that we did was on public property. So it was the public assistance reimbursement portion. And FEMA typically does 75%, and the state can decide if they want to do 25%, but it's not always guaranteed. So from Irma, our costs were actually lower than Matthew. So that's, I wasn't sure which, Mr. Capelli, which storm or what concern that you had with regards to Irma.
It's not Irma so much as the 765,000 charge in the financial statements, whatever that pertains to.
Wasn't that Matthew for 765, Dorota?
this is for this past year when we had what was it?
Oh, for Dorian?
Dorian, yes.
Oh, the current storm. Oh, so, okay. So what's the question specifically regarding Dorian?
Well, the town has essentially one road.
Two, we have to do the Parkway, Beach Walker, and the beach.
Okay,
Just all of our cleanup.
and KICA substantially more.
Right.
And Alex, you may be more aware of what their costs were than I am, but KICA doesn't seem, from a percentage standpoint, to have paid anywhere near the amount that they should have paid given the cost that we have. Now, you're saying that KICA cost is up in the millions?
Alex can say it, but from my understanding, from what I saw from Jimmy, their cost in the end was just over $1 million, I believe. Or maybe it's 800,000, between 800,000 and $1 million, but maybe Alex has that. But it was, I think it's a little bit higher than our cost, from what I remember the final numbers.
So they're only 20% higher than us, and they have probably 100% more roadway?
Yeah, but the costs clean up. We have to check with Kika in terms of their final number. And then our number is that we have Beach Walker, the Parkway, we have to grind. So it's more than just debris cleanup. We're doing the grinding and the transport of the debris. And then if there's anything on the beach.
But it's our contract with the contractor doing the whole project and then allocating costs?
Say that one more time.
It's it's one contract with one contractor doing the entire cleanup process, and then we allocate the cost?
No, Kika has their own contract and we have our contract. So there's two separate contractors. So Kika has a cost that they incurred and pay the contractors that they activate. And then we have our contractors that we activate. Now, what we have done on some storms, Irma, we did not go behind the gate at all, but Dorian, what we did is that we did go behind the gate, and we did at times we would go behind the gate and assist with cleanup. Anything that in our contract, we do initial cut and toss. Also, what we did was, which is something that the town council can agree to, or the mayor can agree depending on the storm. Is if you recall, we sent out notices to property owners, letting them know when we would pick up debris. So we did that for about 2 weeks. When we go around and we do cleanup, if they put their debris out on the street, we pick it up with Carolina Waste or with our contractor. And let's see, I think that's about only thing that we did with Dorian behind the gate. We actually helped with some debris cleanup, and we did pick up from property owners and regimes.
I also, I just wonder, I don't want to cut this off, but I do wonder whether this is, say, an allocation between Kika and the town is the right topic for an audit committee meeting. I don't think the auditors, as long as the town council or the mayor, as the case may be, has, if you will, negotiated or agreed that, I would assume that that should be deemed proper. Now, whether or not that is a good negotiation or not is probably something to bring up at the Ways and Means or the committee or the town council, I think.
That's correct.
Well, I'm not sure that is. I think what my question was, Klaus, is that Ways and Means and the council looked at it. Do we want the auditors to do anything more that satisfy not only themselves, but satisfy council that properly reported in the financial statements?
Oh, okay. So those are two different things. Okay. I misunderstood you then. You are not saying, and please correct me if I summarize this wrong. You are not saying we want the auditors to look at whether town council properly or the mayor properly agreed a split with Kika. You want the auditors to potentially look at whether it is reported correctly in the statement. Am I phrasing that correctly?
It is. You're right.
That's different.
Okay, that is a different issue, and I don't see why
That
not.
shouldn't be any different than any other expense that's in our statements. It should be in the audit scope.
Yeah, I mean, that should be within the normal scope of an audit, not nothing.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's a bigger number, of course, but yeah. Good point.
David, did you understand? Can you comment on if you're looking at if it's reported correctly in our financials?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, that's part of our audit. Yeah, I mean, we will ensure that it's properly recorded in the financial statements.
This is John Ross. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Can you go over what is your schedule for the audit?
Well, again, we've done some preliminary audit procedures. Dorota's went ahead and sent us a lot of stuff that we had asked for in our PBC letter over the past several weeks. So we've gotten a file set up. We've kind of already determined what we're going to test. Starting today is our first day of actually being on site for audit fieldwork. So we'll spend the next 4 days doing our testing, going through our walkthroughs of internal controls, and then just doing the audit fieldwork itself. And then we'll spend the next week or so after that just kind of reviewing the file, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, following up with any additional procedures we need to do based on the testing that we've done this week. And then, again, try to get Dorota a draft the financial statements, within the next 2.5 weeks, to allow her plenty of time to review it, ask any questions that she needs to ask as far as how everything's going and is presented within the financial statements, and also allow her plenty of time to do the ND&A and get all the stats and transmittal letter and such to compile the CAFR so we can get that submitted to the audit committee in advance of the presentation to the town council meeting, which I believe Rhoda said was you all wanted to do in early November.
November 3rd, yes.
Yeah. And from an audit standpoint this year, again, this is our second year auditing you all, so the first year learning curve of learning how you all operate and do things, we have that knowledge under our belt right now. So again, this from a time standpoint, it will be more efficient this year. There are no new GASB standards implemented this year that's going to change your financial statements. In previous years, we had to implement GASB 75, which required your OPEB to be presented with your financial statements. GASB 68, your net pension liability. There's nothing new this year. So there's no additional time that will be spent this year implementing new GASB standards. So again, I feel confident that we can meet the time frame and get everything to y'all in well advance of the November meeting with Town Council.
So can we go ahead and schedule the next meeting, then audit committee meeting, maybe sometime the week of October 19th? Would that work?
October 19th?
With the draft, yes, with the final, I mean, a good draft, final draft to the audit committee to review. So I would need that sometime, a couple of days before to let the members review it before the meeting. Would that work?
Can we do the 21st? How is the 21st or the 22nd for everyone?
Of October, sir.
Yes, sir.
Either of those days work for me, if that works for you all.
Either one works for me, although this year, I hope we could get a final report as opposed to a draft, which last year changed.
But Andy, don't we need to approve the draft and recommend the draft to the council for
Yeah, but I mean, final in the sense that our auditors are satisfied and that's the report as it's going to go out.
Yeah, I believe last year the MD&A and some statistical information was not included in that draft for the audit committee meeting. So if you all want a more complete draft, if you will, that includes the MD&A, Doretta, what time frame will you need for us to send you the draft to help assist you in preparation of the MD&A?
If let's say we're going to meet on the 21st, I mean, the draft needs to be on the we'll meet on the 21st. So I would need the final draft on the 16th. Final, so that way I can send it out on Friday the 16th to the audit committee members. They'll have time to review. So let's back it up. So I need let's Monday on the 5th. October 5th, if I have.
The 5th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That will give me almost 2 weeks to work, or week and a half to work on the M&D. And would that mean? I mean, would that work for you guys, Kellen and?
Yeah. I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
I mean, okay.
I think I can definitely have it to you sooner this year than last year. For sure.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, again, last year was our first year, so it took some additional time to create those financial statements from scratch. But we have a template now that I feel confident we can get it to you in a couple of weeks.
That's great. And so
put Trey on notice again this year that rather than change the report as we did last year, and it was more than just the MD&A, if we get a final quality review before we see the draft so that we know you're finished. So if you can get Trade on the same timetable, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. That won't be a problem.
Okay. Should we schedule something for the 21st then? October 21st?
Wednesday, October 21st, 10 o'clock?
Fine.
Fine.
Works for me.
Works for me too.
Anyone it doesn't work for? Perfect, done.
So Dorota, just to recap, you need a draft of the financial statements to assist you with the MD&A and the transmittal letter and the stats by October 5th. And then we need to give you all a final draft by October 16th in preparation for the October 21st audit committee meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Claus, back to my my question with reference to the relationship with suppliers. Does the council have a policy with reference to contracts in excess of X amount that must go out to bid on a regular basis every year or every 3 years or so? Does the council have a policy on that?
Stephanie, do you want to take that?
Yes, so town council and Dorota's go out. We have a procurement policy. And with regards to our procurement policy, depending on the cost of the project, then we have to at least get 3 bids. We can put it out for official bid where we put out a notice, we put it in the paper, we send it to Columbia and put it in a local type of newsletter. Can't even think of the name of it. I want to say SHPO, but I know it's not SHPO. That's the State Historic Preservation Office. But SCIBO, South Carolina Bidding Opportunities, I think is what SCIBO stands for. So yes, in a nutshell, we do have a ordinance. If it's a special service, so for instance, say it's something that, like for instance, our beach patrol, there's not, we've gone out to bid a number of times. There's not very many companies that provide that service. So we do have within our ordinance that if it's a specialty service, council can, we can seek out services and still get a cost. If they're satisfied with that, then can go ahead and proceed with approving that contract. If not, we can still try to continue bidding. One example, we've bid this now, I believe twice since I've been here, which is our trash services and landscape services. Because I think of the location where we're at in terms of the distance it takes to drive out here. For instance, with our waste contract, we've only have gotten 2 bids. Carolina Waste is the lowest bidder. When we bid this out, I think 2 years ago now, is that correct, Dorota? Our second highest bidder was about $2 million, and Republic or Carolina Waste was about $1 million. I don't even use an example in terms of vehicles. The reason why, for instance, the town, we do go out for bid. We have bid our vehicles now probably for the last couple of years. We do have a list of suppliers that we say, hey, here's our bid packet, please feel free to bid. And then we also put it in SCIBO and put it in the paper. We gotten, last time we did this about 5 or 6 bids, but generally the same company has come out ahead in terms of getting our bid. I think it's Anderson Toyota. And the reason why we picked Toyotas is because we want to basically, Kika uses Toyotas. And as you know, Kika, they have their own in-house person who can fix it. So that's the reason, but we still bid that out based on our procurement policy. We still go out to bid on that. As another example, with regards to our emergency debris management, we did bid that out when I first started 5 years ago. But again, that is such a select group of people that Philip and Jordan basically has been awarded the bid. When it comes up for renewal, we then go to council and just ask for them to renew the contract for Philip and Jordan. Is there anything specific, Mr. Fernandez?
No, just to know. That policy is in writing, you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
It's adopted. It's in our
It's an ordinance.
code. It's online in our Muni code.
Thank you.
You're
By
welcome.
the way, I didn't know that you only bought Toyotas, by the way. I was just a
Oh.
coincidence.
We
It
are.
was not a coincidence. I had no idea that you had I had no idea.
Oh, yes, we
No.
specifically.
Yeah, we are.
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Okay, I thought you was just using that as an
So it
example.
wasn't it was
Okay.
not a direct question. It was
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's a coincidence, but it was not.
Oh, okay.
Alex, that issue was raised by a previous council member, probably half a dozen years ago, and was looked at very closely,
Yes. That's
specifically.
In the procurement manual, there's a specific section dealing with automobile usage purchases, et cetera. Or vehicle.
Okay.
And we did adopt a policy, you all, Dorota can, if you want more information, and it might be even in the accounting policy handbook that we have. But we adopted the county's policy on vehicles with regards to replacement. Not that we have necessarily have followed it because we don't drive our vehicles as far and our mileage doesn't, we don't accumulate that many miles, but we did adopt the county's policy on replacement vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Klaus, if we have a second, I have one question for either David or Trey, whoever wants to respond to it, but in connection with this, and I know you mentioned there's no changes in GAP or gas this year. But in terms of the future, they're talking about, and states are actually changing their laws to talk about this extensible business reporting language, whatever the hell that is, XBRL. And Florida has changed. There's talk that Georgia's going to change. And do you know of any potential changes in South Carolina? What it does, if I can summarize it, basically, as I understand it, it requires you to adopt a more sensible form of reporting instead of the old gaffer reporting, but to use more gas and gap reporting.
Off the top of my head, I'm not aware of anything in South Carolina. Trey, I mean, anything you're aware of?
No.
Keep your eyes open, it's happening. And what it does is it basically negates the old form, as I understand it, negates the old form of governmental reporting. And
So we can have, instead of 100 useless pages, we can just have 10 relevant pages? Is that what the
supposedly
that would work? That would work.
That may be wishful thinking there, but we can always hope.
Well, as I said, Florida's already done it, so it is happening.
Well, there's been talks at GASB about looking into simplifying the financial reporting process, which hopefully can be done, because it has gotten very complicated for sure.
Okay, any other questions, comments for our auditors?
Not here.
If there are none, then I think we're done with this, and we can move on to chairman's comments, and you will be happy to hear that the chairman has no comments. We could move from there to citizens' comments, and given this is a Zoom meeting, I believe, Stephanie, we have no citizens' comments, correct?
Correct. Oh, I was thinking, talking about Petra. You're talking to Petra?
No, I was talking to you.
Oh, yeah. As far as I know, there's no citizen comments.
Well, in that case, unless there is something else, I would entertain a motion and a second to adjourn the audit committee meeting and reconvene as planned on October 21st at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Then thank you all for your time. Petra, congratulations on your first live stream. And the meeting is adjourned. We meet again in about a month or so.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Mr. Ross.